Okay, start again. Hare Krishna, welcome dear devotees. We are continuing reading all the prayers of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we're beginning with Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1, and we began last week. And I've been quite busy, so I didn't get a chance to sit down and identify where we left off in the purport last week, because it's quite a lengthy purport, but let's just begin with some prayers to Prabhupada, and we'll just have a quick scan and see if we can all agree where we left off, okay? Namo Om Vishnu Bhataya Krishna Pushtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Sarasati Teve Gauravani Pachaline Nivasisha Shunyavadi Pushtatara Satanine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, there you go. There is the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1. Okay, now let me just read the verse. I just read the translation. It is a beautiful prayer. Everything is contained within this prayer, more or less in essence, the whole tattva of Krishna consciousness, and it's by Srila Vasudeva as far as I understand. Okay. O my Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa, son of Vasudeva, all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa, because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent, because there is no cause, because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmājī, the original living being. By him, even great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire, or land seen on water. Only because of him that the material universe is temporarily manifested by the three modes of material nature, appear factual, as though they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Okay. The opening spoken and then written verse of Srila Vasudeva. Okay, so I'm scrolling around here. You can see me scrolling. Any takers on where we left off? Mother Chandra, he wasn't here last week. I remember this.
We did this uncirclops person go immediately to 10th canto. We were talking about there.
Yeah, yes, that I remember as well.
Yeah.
So perhaps it might be here. You think here? Begin from here?
We can try.
Let's try. If it sounds very familiar, we can just edge on to the next paragraph. Yeah, that's how we normally do it. Once we start reading, we kind of recall the conversation that we had. All right, so what we're doing here, we're just each devotees reading a paragraph. Wow, quite a few. Let's see if we can complete this today. Now I've lost, yeah. Okay, so from here. Okay, Mother Mongolji, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you.
Raring to go.
Srimad Bhagavatam is the narration of the Svarupa of the Lord manifested by his internal potency. And this potency is distinguished from the external potency which has manifested the cosmic world, which is within our experience. Srila Vyasadeva makes a clear distinction between the two in this shloka. Śrī Vasudeva say herein that the manifested internal potency is real, whereas the external manifestation, manifested energy in the form of material existence is only temporary and illusory, like the mirage in the desert. In the desert mirage, there is no actual water. There is only the appearance of water. Real water is somewhere else. The manifested cosmic creation appears as reality, but reality of which this is but a shadow. It is the spiritual world. Absolute truth, it is the spiritual sky, not the material sky. In the material sky, everything is relative truth. That is to say, one truth depends on something else. This cosmic creation results from the interaction of the three modes of nature, and the temporary manifestations are so created as the present an illusion of reality to the bewildered mind of the conditioned soul, who appears in so many species of life, including the higher demigods, like Brahma, Indra, Chandra, and so on. In actuality, there is no reality in the manifested world. There appears to be reality, however, because of the true reality which exists in the spiritual world, where the personality of Godhead eternally exists with his transcendental paraphernalia. Sorry, it's just very small, I barely see.
No, very nice reading. Could hear very clearly.
Should I continue or leave
No,
some?
let's just pause there for any reflections, as Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa says on this. I always find it myself quite, I don't know if the word, uncanny or quite mystifying that this whole place is just a mirage. It's not, it's a reflection of this, of something which is actually real.
But then we don't perceive it properly, isn't it? The way we perceive it, it's what we got attached to and train our mind to see it in a certain way by the experiences we had.
Yeah, for sure. It's called, as Prabhupada mentions, created to present an illusion of reality to the bewildered mind of the conditioned soul. Then he goes on, who appears in many different species of life. Yeah. So this place exists because there is a real substance. And that real substance is the spiritual world. Yeah. Anyway, Srila Vasudeva is pointing this out. There's two energies. There's the external energy and the internal energy.
We also have quite a few Srimad Bhagavatam speakers when they're giving class. They talk about some Brahmin or somebody who lost an earring, and the woman had dropped it somewhere near the river. So they kept looking into the river. They could see that earring and trying to get it, but they couldn't get it. And then someone came and showed them on the top, on a branch, it was lying. And the earring was just a reflection. So really, they should be looking up to get the proper stuff.
All right, really? Haven't heard that.
Only Prabhu said this past times. We were reading from one of the books. In Yamuna Kund, it was looking like there was something in the river, but actually it wasn't. Isn't it, Molly Prabhu? We read from one of the books.
I can't remember that.
And on a Yamuna, it appeared that actually there was in the water a reflection, but it wasn't. It was actually the tree other way around or something like that.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
But it sounds interesting. Yeah. So so we invest all our faculties within this external energy, but it's all illusory, because all emotions, all faculties are actually have their origin in in loving service to Krishna. And just like in the spiritual world, there is relationships, as we know. So here there is relationships, but they're kind of facsimile relationships. Anyway, yeah, we can see how people really, how we and everyone really invests their complete concept of reality into this material world. But from the absolute perspective, it is just like a cloud, you know, it has no actual significance. It's just as significant as this body. This body is insignificant in comparison to our existence as a soul. It has very little, if anything, bearing on the significance of us being a spiritual being, soul. This body, we've had so many different bodies, and same with this material world is made of the same elements, those temporary elements. So anyway, by Krishna consciousness, we can get some insight and connect to that spiritual world. Goloka Prema Dana Harinam Sankirtan. Yeah, that's coming. It's coming from the spiritual world. Hare Krishna, and Krishna comes as well. All right. Any other comments or questions here? I think is relative truth. Okay, so we're trying to grapple in this place, which is a mirage. We're trying to grapple. We're trying to get perception of that eternal spiritual world. And the only way we can do that is actually, again, is through the holy name. Yeah. Okay.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking as we were reading that. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah, I was thinking that actually it's quite confusing, isn't it, when you want to connect with spiritual energy, but it seems like the temporary material energy is all around you. So you have like, I know you can dovetail things, but I was thinking it's kind of like, it's quite a challenge, you know, to go outside the door every day and see everything happening all around, you know, everyone talking about their material things, and you have a different aim in life. It's like, and you're trying not to connect with the material energy. I was thinking today, actually it was today, I was thinking, it's only Krishna that can help us through this. It is like an impossible ocean of material energy. It's impossible to get out of. Only when you feel Krishna's protection that you can actually, you know, be detached from it, I guess.
Yeah, Devi Esha Gunamayi, Mama Maya Turatyaya, Mam Evaye Bapatyante, Mayam Etam Tarantade. Yeah, it's divine energy of mind. So it's divine because it's coming from Krishna. And it consists of nothing but the modes of material nature. It's very difficult to overcome. But by the principle and the process of surrender, we can overcome it by Krishna's grace. Yeah, devotees are very thoughtful, and we should be thoughtful and we should be reflective. I mean, I've been doing that the last couple of days. I guess everywhere is busy in London, central London, but just feeling a bit of a, I don't know how to describe it, an existential dread, basically, in the sense that everyone you look at, everyone you see is moving only and doing only for their own self-satisfaction. No one is moving or doing to serve Krishna. Yeah? Like in the spiritual world, everyone is moving and functioning out of loving affection for Krishna. But here, everyone is moving only for their own selves.
And that satisfaction, actually the quality of that satisfaction they're looking for is very low. I mean, there is nothing really to enjoy out there at the moment. You look around, even in London, what is there to enjoy? What kind of satisfaction are they looking for? Because it's, you know, they haven't really set a very high standard for enjoyment, because there's very little to enjoy out there, really, when you have a good look.
Yeah, and it's actually hellish what they do for so-called enjoyment, you know, drink alcohol and do all types of things. But yeah, and that's what creates, with those who are fortunate, that creates within them, those who are fortunate, they should question that. They should question their situation, you know. Why is this place not giving me the happiness which I need or which I want? But then there's the, you know, then there's the potency of the illusory energy. It covers one over as well, where one thinks oneself to be quite nicely situated. Avar Akmiksha and Parek Akshmika, these potencies. But yeah, so same as Mother Lavanga, hopefully some of us as well, we should contemplate the illusory energy of the Lord and its potency to bewilder. And it describes even great demigods, even great sages and demigods are bewildered by the illusory representations, just as water is seen on land or land is seen on water. Yeah, it's mirage.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Haribol.
Haribol. Can you hear? Can everyone
Yes, we can today.
hear me? I just
Oh.
Prabhu, I was always, when I hear this narration, like this description, I don't know, for some reason my thoughts goes with everybody who must be heard of this really beautiful voice young girl who died, Amy Winehouse. I think of her, I think such creation Lord had given her, such ability Lord gave, but what happened to her? She died with alcohol addiction at a young age, you know. So everything, she had such a beautiful voice, so much talent, but how the Lord's that energy really destroyed her. I don't know, for some reason I always remember this girl when we speak about this you know, this explanation.
Yeah.
You may know Amy Winehouse because such a unbelievable talent. The voice.
I never heard her sing myself, but yeah, she's the come from Camden. Out of a drug overdose.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's just one of billions and millions of stories of sadness in this material world.
Yeah.
Full of,
but this really fits for me. I don't know. I think, oh my God, that's an example for me, like what can happen.
What can happen and what does happen.
But
yeah, exactly.
What does happen? Most of the stars pay the same price because they cannot handle the energy. They will become bewildered, and there's so much power and energy that they need to shut themselves a bit down by alcohol and drugs. It's too much.
But her story is very different. I am really like, it's a very, very, very extremely sad. Extremely sad.
Like Nitai Matas was really into it.
I really feel, oh my God, why?
Anyway, offer some prayers to Krishna for her. You obviously have. All right.
Because it explains very well the situation.
Yeah, typical. Had so much so-called, had a life of kind of, I can say, a life set out in front of her, seemed very promising, but died of a drug overdose. You could go on, could list so many so-called people. Okay, let's read the next paragraph. It's here, the chief engineer.
Shall I read?
Go ahead, yes. Yeah.
The chief engineer of the complicated construction does not personally take part in the construction, but he knows every nook and corner because everything is done under his direction. He knows everything about the construction, both directly and indirectly. Similarly, the personality of Godhead, who is the supreme engineer of this cosmic creation, knows every nook and corner, although affairs are being carried out by demigods, beginning from Brahma down to the insignificant ant. No one is independent in this material world. The hand of the Lord is seen everywhere. All material elements as well as all spiritual sparks emanate from him only. And whatever is created in this material world is but the interaction of two energies, the material and the spiritual, which emanate from the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, Śrī Kṛṣṇa. A chemist can manufacture water in the chemical laboratory by mixing hydrogen and oxygen. But in reality, the living entity works in the laboratory under the direction of the Supreme Lord, and the materials with which he works are also supplied by the Lord. The Lord knows everything directly and indirectly, and he is cognizant of all minute details, and he is fully independent. He is compared to a mine of gold, and the cosmic creations in so many different forms are compared to objects made from the gold, such as gold rings, necklaces, and so on. The gold ring and gold necklace are qualitatively one with the gold in the mine, but quantitatively, the gold in the mine is different. Therefore, the absolute truth is simultaneously one and different. Nothing is absolutely equal with the absolute truth, but at the same time, nothing is independent of the absolute truth.
I was thinking, Mother Vajkasha, you could read the next paragraph as well.
Okay.
Make some way through the purpose.
Conditioned souls begin from Brahma, who engineers the entire universe, down to the insignificant ant, are all creating, but none of them are independent of the Supreme Lord. The materialist wrongly thinks that there is no creator other than his own self. This is called Maya or illusion. Because of his poor fund of knowledge, the materialist cannot see beyond the purview of his imperfect senses, and thus he thinks that matter automatically takes its own shape without the aid of the supreme intelligence, superior intelligence. This is refuted in this sloka by Srila Vasudeva. Since the complete whole or the absolute truth is the source of everything, nothing can be independent of the body of the absolute truth. Whatever happens to the body quickly becomes known to the embodied. Similarly, the creation is the body of the absolute whole. Therefore, the absolute knows everything directly and indirectly that happens in the creation.
Okay.
Thank you.
So he is independent because there's no cause beyond him. Yeah. So that Surat is the Prabhupada's commenting on this part of this verse. Okay. So any reflections here on these two paragraphs? Let me just quickly go to the verse. I just want to check something here. See here. Causal risk. He is directly and indirectly of all manifestations. And he is independent because there's no cause beyond him. So this is what Prabhupada is speaking at the moment, yeah? Directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. So he's omnipresent and omnipotent. Let's go find it again. Here. No, excuse me. Here. Okay. All right. All convinced about this?
The next paragraph is also conditioned souls. We read that one as well.
Oh, really? Yeah, we did. Yeah, I'm just saying. Any comments on these two paragraphs or questions?
From these two paragraphs, we understand that nothing happens because I want this way or I prefer it. Whatever Krishna does happens.
Yeah,
It's
thank you.
ensured.
I'm just trying to get the essence of it myself. I'm just glancing over that. Yeah. So everything is being supplied by Krishna. Yeah. Just like there's story, I think Srila Prabhupada tells it where there was some people who were being oppressed by an invading army, and they had surrounded their village or where they was taking shelter, and they'd stopped all food supply. So the persons were starving to death, were actually starving, you know, and these were all religious people, as far as I can understand the story. So an invading army or troops, they was kind of militias and javanas and kind of very materialistic. And they was mocking these people who were starving. They was mocking them. And then they brought them bread. And they threw bread to them. And then they were saying, just see, you are praying to God for bread and you are starving. Now we are giving you bread. So we are your superiors. Like that. But how did Prabhupada finish this story? What's the catch in this story? It seems very much like God didn't supply them the bread, despite their fervent prayers. But this army of dacoits or bandits, who were not very religious, gave them bread.
Yeah, but they didn't make the bread from the wheat had to be grown and the sun had to shine.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
the
So
rain had to fall.
where did they get the bread from?
Yeah.
The bread, no, the energy for growing the bread was supplied by the Lord himself. And you could say even the inspiration for these persons to give them bread was inspired by the Lord himself. Yeah. So ultimately everything is being supplied. Prabhupada says here, a chemist can manufacture water in a chemical laboratory by mixing hydrogen and oxygen. Anyone tried that? Any chemist here? Got some hydrogen, oxygen, mixed them together? I can try one day. But in reality, the living entity works in the laboratory under direction of the Supreme Lord. And all the materials with which he works are also supplied by the Lord. Okay? So sometimes Prabhupada speaks like the materialistic person becomes very, very proud of their so-called scientific advancement. But all intelligence is being given to them by the Supreme. And at any time, he can stop the supply. Yeah. Anytime, at any time, something could happen where what is ordinarily supplied becomes not supplied. And then persons become a bit humble then, become a bit reflective. That's what happened in COVID, isn't it? Do you remember that thing called COVID? People were becoming quite philosophical, were beginning to reflect on life and its ultimate purpose and its ultimate meaning. Because near enough from one day to the next, everything that they took for granted was cut off. Things we would never at least hear in Western Europe here, we would never dream of such a situation. But suddenly, just one little tiny germ, isn't it? One little tiny germ expands and expands. Anyway, we all know the story of COVID. So I think generally there was a great, and I think after COVID, there has been a bit of persons, not all as a whole, but a lot of people a little bit more grounded, a little bit more inquisitive about the actual purpose and meaning. Yeah. So it's Krishna who is sustaining us. Krishna is sustaining the universe. Krishna is supplying all the ingredients. And he's, so he's directly and indirectly conscious of all details. So his consciousness is spread everywhere. And Prabhupada speaks about here, he gives this example more than one place. He is compared to a mine of gold, and the cosmic creations in so many different forms are compared to objects made from such gold. The gold ring and the gold necklace are qualitatively one with the gold in the mine, but quantitatively the gold in the mine is different. Therefore, the absolute truth is simultaneously one and different. Nothing is absolutely equal to the absolute truth, but at the same time, nothing is independent. So this is, as we know, Lord Chaitanya gave us, or not, Lord Chaitanya just presented this, Achincha Bheda Bheda Tattva. Okay, let's read another couple of big paragraph here. Someone like to read this one in the Shruti mantra? Any questions, comments, please feel free to ask.
I can read.
Yeah, go ahead.
In the Shruti mantra, it is also stated that the absolute whole, or Brahman, is the ultimate source of everything. Everything emanates from him and everything is maintained by him, but at the end, everything enters into him. And at the end, that is the law of nature. In the Smriti mantra, the same is confirmed. It is said that the source from which everything emanates at the beginning of Brahma's millennium and the reservoir to which everything ultimately enters is the absolute truth, or Brahman. Material scientists take it for granted that the ultimate source of the planetary system is the sun, but they are unable to explain the source of the sun. Herein, the ultimate source is explained. According to the Vedic literatures, Brahma, who may be compared to the sun, is not the ultimate creator. It is stated in the sloka that Brahma was taught Vedic knowledge by the Personality of Godhead. One may argue that Brahma, being the original living being, could not be inspired because there was no other living being at the time. Herein it is stated that the Supreme Lord inspired the secondary creator Brahma in order that Brahma could carry out his creative functions. So the supreme intelligence behind all creations is the absolute Godhead, Śrī Kṛṣṇa. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa states that it is he only who superintends the creative energy, Prakriti, which constitutes the totality of matter. Therefore, Sri Vyasadeva does not worship Brahma, but the Supreme Lord, who guides Brahma in his creative activities. In this sloka, the particular words abhijñā and svarat are significant. These two words distinguish the Supreme Lord from all the other living entities. No other living entity is either abhijñā or svarat. That is, no one is either fully cognizant or fully independent. Even Brahma has to meditate upon the Supreme Lord in order to create. Then what to speak of great scientists like Einstein? The brains of such a scientist are certainly not the products of any human being. Scientists cannot manufacture such a brain. And what to speak of foolish atheists who defy the authority of the Lord? Even Mayavadi impersonalists who flatter themselves that they can become one with the Lord are neither abhijñā or svarat. Such impersonalists undergo severe austerities to acquire knowledge to become one with the Lord. But ultimately, they become dependent on some rich disciple who supplies them with money to build monasteries and temples. Atheists like Ravana or Hiranyakashipu had to undergo severe penances before they could flout the authority of the Lord. but ultimately they were rendered helpless and could not save themselves when the Lord appeared before them as cruel death. This is also the case with the modern atheists, who also dare to flout the authority of the Lord. Such atheists will be dealt with similarly, for history repeats itself. Whenever men neglect the authority of the Lord, nature and her laws are there to penalize them. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4:7, in the well-known verse, Yada yada hi dharmasya glani.
Yeah, right.
Whenever there is a decline of dharma and a rise of adharma, O Arjuna,
Okay.
then I incarnate myself.
So, Hare Krishna. I'm just checking now. Any questions here, comments?
What does abhigna mean? You know, swarat I understand, but
So that
abhigna?
means abhigana means fully cognizant.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, fully cognizant. Abhigana saratena Brahma. That's mentioned here as well. Tena Brahma Hritaye Kaviyai. Kaviyai. Yeah, the Vedic knowledge is imparted to the heart of Brahmājī. Yeah. So there's kind of a quasi discussion amongst actually some of them pose themselves as not being theists, but they proposing what they call it theory, but they're proposing the fact of intelligent design. You've heard of this? That considering all the evidence at our disposal, considering the nature, call it, of the fine-tuned universe. Yeah, they've managed to conclude that the universe is very, very finely tuned. Yeah. Just like the rising of the sun and the orbit of the planets and the seasons, although they're subject to be disturbed, as we know, but generally it's all very finely tuned. So there must be an intelligent design behind it. Yeah, sometimes that's presented obviously by those who believe in God, but also because, you know, I've been into this in the past and I've watched different debates on it, and I find it interesting to watch those who are scientists who are not theists, and they're concluding, they're just, I mean, I can't repeat the details of how they come to the conclusion, but they conclude that there has to be an intelligence. And then the atheist will say, okay, but why do you posit God? Why do you propose God to be that intelligence? They say it's the natural, it's the natural evolutionary, natural, without any God-given direction. Anyway, like that. The atheists will go on and on and on and on. But here it's been quite, Srila Vasudeva is making it very clear. Everything is coming from Krishna. Everything is sustained by him. Everything is annihilated by him. And I like this at the end as well. Here, whenever men neglect the authority of the Lord, nature and the laws are there to penalize them. Yeah. So one penalized, to get penalized means you die. And you die again and again and again. Yeah. Then there's the natural catastrophes, which we know. Yeah. Yeah, so mankind has to be careful. The more atheistic it becomes, the more it's subject to turmoil. Yeah. But the more theistic it becomes, then the more everything will be arranged in a natural and wonderful way. But the more atheistic, the more people will be in want. The more people will struggle. Then we can read also in the Bhagavatam of times when, for instance, Maharaj Yudhisthira, when he was ruling the earth, there's that verse described in the first canto, that the clouds poured forth all the water that people needed. And the earth, it said, the earth supplied all the necessities of man in profusion. And the cow would moisten, through its cheerful disposition, would moisten the grazing ground with milk. And all the oceans would give jewels, and all the forests would give the herbs for health. Even isn't it described during during the reign of Lord Ram? No one would die untimely. No son would die before the father. Yeah. And yeah, can we imagine a world? Can you imagine a world where no one, or imagine a country or a time when no one got divorced? Can you try to? Can people imagine that? Say, like in India, for example, hundreds of years ago, and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people get married, not one divorce. That's quite, if you try and imagine the society, what it must have been like, how much respect and how much dharma. Imagine a dharma that creates the collective dharma for the well-being of everyone, and how happy everyone is naturally. Can we imagine such a thing where no one got divorced? Yeah, see a few nodding heads. We can't imagine it. But just try and imagine what the society would be like. That much dharma is there, because marriage was a religious principle, it's a religious thing. So obviously husband and wives would have their issues. Sometimes a wife would go to live with her, go to stay with her mother for some time, probably. Anyway, Hare Krishna. We cannot imagine such things where there's a God-conscious society, where everyone has faith in the Supreme Lord and everyone's offering some worship. Yeah. Okay, Hare Krishna. All right, what's the time? 18:45. Did we read this one? No, we didn't. Perhaps I can have a read of these two paragraphs here. So I'm keep scrolling up and down and losing the place. So we're here, isn't it? No, we're here. Unless one surrenders.
down.
No, it's back up. Unless one surrenders. Yeah, that's where it
Yeah,
is.
unless one surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, it is certain that he will be bewildered. Devi Esha Gunamai. When an intelligent, what's that a verse as well? Unless one inquires into the spiritual values of life, one is subjected and defeated by the miseries arising from ignorance. 5th canto, yeah. And unless one inquires into the spiritual values of life, one is subject to the miseries arising from ignorance. Okay. Unless one surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, it is certain that he will be bewildered. When an intelligent man surrenders unto the lotus feet of Krishna and knows completely that Krishna is the cause of all causes, Sava Kara Karanam, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Which verse is that? Krishna, the cause of all causes, could be a couple. Aham pavasha bhavavo matasavam pavatade iti matva bhajanti mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. That's one. Everything emanates from me. Yeah. Then only can such an intelligent man become a Mahatma, great soul. But such a great soul is rarely seen. Only the Mahatmas can understand that the Supreme Lord is the primeval cause of all creations. Yeah, it's that Hamsavasha Pāpavo. He is Parama, or the ultimate truth, because all other truths are relative to him. He is omniscient. For him, there is no illusion. Okay. I'm just going to read through now. Is that okay? Some Mayavadi scholars argue that Srimad Bhagavatam was not compiled by Vasudeva. They say Volpadev, someone called Volpadev. And somebody, oh yeah, it says here, okay, I'll try and keep quiet and read it. And some of them suggest that this book is a modern creation written by someone named Volpadev. In order to refute such meaningless arguments, Srila Sridhar Swami points out that there is reference to the Bhagavatam in many of the oldest Puranas. This first sloka of Bhagavatam begins with the Gayatri mantra. There is a reference to this in the Matsya Purana, which is the oldest Purana. In that Purana, it is said with reference to the Gayatri mantra in the Bhagavatam that there are many narrations of spiritual instructions beginning with the Gayatri mantra. And there is the history of Vrita Shura. Anyone who makes a gift of this great work, here we are, we have the Bhadra campaign, on the full moon day, attains the highest perfection of life by returning back to Godhead. There is reference to the Bhagavatam in other Puranas also, where it is clearly stated that this work was finished in 12 cantos, which include 18,000 slokas. In the Padma Purana also, there is a reference to the Bhagavatam in a conversation between Gautama and Maharaj Ambarish. The king was advised therein to read regularly Srimad Bhagavatam if he desired liberation from material bondage. Under the circumstances, there is no doubt about the authority of the Bhagavatam. Within the past 500 years, many erudite scholars and charyas like Jiva Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Vallabhacharya, and many other distinguished scholars, even after the time of Lord Chaitanya, made elaborate commentaries on the Bhagavatam, which includes the commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So I did that in. And a serious student would do well to attempt to go through them to better relish the transcendental messages. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur specifically deals with the original pure sex psychology, Adi Rasa, devoid of all mundane inebriety. The whole material creation is moving under the principle of sex life. In modern civilization, sex life is the focal point of all activities. Wherever one turns his face, he sees sex life predominant. Therefore, sex life is not unreal. Its reality is experienced in the spiritual world. The material sex life is but a perverted reflection of the original fact. The original fact is in the absolute truth, and thus the absolute truth cannot be impersonal. It is not impersonal to be, it cannot be impersonal. It is not possible to be impersonal and contain pure sex life. Consequently, the impersonalist philosophers have given indirect impetus to the abominable mundane sex life, because they have overstressed the impersonality of the ultimate truth. Consequently, man without information of the actual spiritual form of sex has accepted perverted material sex life as the all in all. There is a distinction between sex life in the diseased material condition and spiritual sex life. The Srimad Bhagavatam will gradually elevate the unbiased reader to the highest perfectional state of transcendence. It will enable him to transcend the three modes of material activities, fruitive actions, speculative philosophy, and worship of functional deities as inculcated in the Vedic verses. Okay. Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay. Got 8 minutes. Let's try and next week we can begin with more prayers. But any questions or comments here? Do we understand here what's being described?
How to learn the whole prayer every day if you want to, because you can't read all this every day. It's a long time consuming.
Well, we can't read what? We can read the prayer.
Yeah, but this is quite a few pages.
Oh, you mean going through? No, we're just going to read this prayer, this opening prayer by Srila Vasudeva. Then next we're going to go to the 7th chapter and read some prayers by Arjuna.
Oh, okay.
Text 22 to 25. But otherwise, yes, probably every verse in the Bhagavatam you could say is a prayer. But we're directly dealing with those prayers which are enunciated by the devotees when they're praying to the Lord specifically. So we're looking at specifically, yeah. Because the next verse also is also by Srila Vyasadeva. Then the next one. Nigama kalpataro galitam phalam sukha mukhat amrita bhavyatam. And all wonderful purports, you know, for sure. But okay.
Okay. I was just thinking of like how to do a prayer every single day by a devotee. So every day we can do a different prayer by individually. I'm not saying in the class, but at home, everybody can take one prayer to Krishna. But this prayer is far too long to read up. It's a few pages to read.
Do you mean the purport?
If you read that in Hindi, then it's not long enough.
No,
the purport is very long, whether it's Hindi or English.
Purport is very long, whether it's Hindi or English. If you're inspired, then you'll be inspired. You'll be inspired to learn you'll be inspired to learn the verse, and it'd be asking too much for you to memorize the purport. That is not. You should. Like I mean, I learned it years ago, this verse, and it's still kind of in there. Janmadiyasaya tat navayat itaratas chechus vigana saratena brahmahritaye muyanti yat suryaha tejo varimidam trisaguramishatam nasvaina kuhukam satyam param dhimahi. Yeah. So
if we just recite the Sanskrit verse, it's okay.
If you know the meaning of it.
Okay.
That's why it's good to, alongside the Sanskrit, is to have a good grasp and of the English translation. Otherwise, you can just recite the English translation. On my all-pervading Supreme Personality of Godhead. You know.
Okay. Thank you.
But this is a bit delicate to try, and sometimes the language which Prabhupada expressed here, this is something, you see this part of highlighted here? So there is sex life in the spiritual world. It's kind of a delicate how you present this, or generally this type of subject, you're not going to, or persons who are first coming to Krishna consciousness, you wouldn't be perhaps explaining this to them, because it takes some purification. It takes a certain level of adhikar to actually appreciate it and kind of get an insight into it. You understand? Because it's described here that there is that the point is a sex life. It's interesting. Prabhupada's writing this, and he wrote this before he came to the West. Prabhupada wrote this when he was still in India, was still in Vrindavan. And there we know, isn't it, that it's not, it could say, Prabhupada, point I'm saying here, Prabhupada is saying this, wherever one turns his face, he sees sex life predominant. So this Prabhupada, let alone in the West today, but this is the nature of the material world. But it exists here because it's there in its pure form. Yeah, it's there, but it's the pure form. Here it's perverted reflection. It's all based on selfish desire. Where one wants to satisfy the self. And I don't want in front of all Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis here. We all know what goes on when someone wants to satisfy themselves and their own senses. I mean, I hope you don't mind, but has anyone seen that absolutely horrific, proving this point, that persons of this case in France?
Yes.
I won't go to the, I don't want to go. This case in France is like, my God.
Extremely depraved.
Yeah.
And
It's the most wicked, depraved thing you could possibly. I mean, this lady, she's definitely, she's someone else, just so brave to come out. And but the point is what people will do to try and please their own senses. That's the sex life here. They will kill to please their own sense gratification. But in the spiritual world, it's completely selfless. Radharani, gopis, they have no sense of doing anything for their own pleasure. It's all for the satisfaction of Krishna, and then vice versa as well. That's love. That's real, if you could say, use the word Adi Ras. That has its original, where it's completely selfless. But here, in the material world, it's completely selfish. You know, like this case, and we got, you know, I guess I'm getting into it now, but you got the pedo files, you know, what do you call it? Pedos, those who, I mean, it's like it's everywhere. It's all over the world, in every country, what people will do to try and please themselves. So that's what it means. That's the perverted reflection it gets here. It's demonic, and in one sense it's evil, and it takes on an evil and demonic dimension. But in the spiritual world, it's completely no sense of the self. It's all to please the beloved. That's the adiras. Yeah, that's the pure sex psychology. It's interesting the word uses for sex psychology. So yeah, of giving pleasure to the beloved, and the beloved also wants to give pleasure. The ashraya and vishaya. Yeah. Hare Krishna. All right, any final comments on that? Yeah, let's get out of this place. We got to get out of this place. If it's the last thing we ever do, used to be one song. Anyone know that song?
Hopefully quick enough.
Yeah. And yeah, so, but we have to be careful how we approach, because we're so conditioned to this perverted understanding of sex life, that if we go there with our material conditioning and try to understand Radha Krishna's pastimes, we're going to think it's the same. So we really have to step forward with caution and get pure, and we need purification so we can understand its real nature, because sometimes it's misunderstood to be like, what's going on here? It's nothing to do with what's going on here. Okay, sorry, I'm going on one now. Hare Krishna. All right, let's stop there. And then next week we'll begin, we'll have a look at some prayers by Arjuna. Maybe have a look here. I can just show you here. Let me just share this. Stop share. 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 Okay, you can see it here. We're going by this. And also, devotees, like I mentioned last week, that I have already identified prayers that are not included in this list. So if you know of any prayers in your readings of Bhagavatam that's not here, and perhaps Chandravali, you could, because you sent me this, you could forward this to devotees. Then they could get an idea of where we're going in these readings and discussion, yeah? So we got Arjuna, we got Queen Kunti, wonderful prayers, Bhishma, ladies of Hastinapura, and Krishna's coming and going, Sukadeva Goswami, etc. Kadama Muni, like that. So many. Okay, so thank you, dear devotees. I've got to go to Euston Station. Got to meet Srimad Bhagavatam Prabhu, who's arriving today. Okay, thank you for kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hari Bol.
There you go.